I've been told that there's some sort of happy hour after this, and I always say, like, I don't want to be like a hippo between me and the bar. A hippo in the water, you get run over. So we'll just start. We may be joined by our other Guilder friend who's caught in traffic, and I've told her to just mic up and join us on stage. So we'll be very organic about that if it happens. So my name is Debbie Sallis. I am the executive director building the Cyber Guild, which is a public charity foundation focused on creating and building a sustainable cybersecurity ecosystem. We focus specifically on activating leaders to change the systems from within, to build inclusive workspaces, to attract and keep high potential talent. And we pay specific attention to advancing women into leadership. So that's who I am. And I'm not from Texas, I'm from Northern Ireland. But I've been here for a wee while now, hence the accent. I'll let Diane introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Diane Vogel, and I have been in talent acquisition for about 25 plus years. I'm currently with a company called TekStream Solutions. I've been with them for 11 years. We have a division that helps federal contractors identify talent, so we may have worked with some of your companies in the past. I also have the opportunity, over the past couple of years, I've moved over to our core consulting business. And so I do support our cybersecurity practice, and I'm also very involved with our workforce development program, which I'm going to be giving you a little insight about in just a little bit.
Thanks, Diane, for joining me. And as and when our other rogue player comes, I'll introduce her. So at the Cyber Guild, we pride ourselves in aiming to do three things every time we do an event, and I consider this an event, and to have activating experiences. So we aim and hope that you will and people will meet someone. Maybe that's someone you don't know, or reconnecting with someone that you wish you could reconnect with. We learn something, and that can be relearning stuff that we forgot, or hopefully new perspectives. And we do something as a result. So if all we do today is provoke you to meet, learn, or do something different, as Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So if we can do 2 of those things, then that would be super. So anybody in the audience been at a Cyber Guild event before? I do recognize a couple of faces. There's Yolanda's there. I know Yolanda. Anybody here from Leidos or VeriSign or Dominion Energy? Oh, hello. Yeah. So I say that because there are sustaining and founding benefactors. Thank you. We would not be here without you. And it's lovely to see people in the audience. So we're going to start, Diane is going to start us off. And I'm interested really in what is the problem we're really trying to solve. Just this morning, I was on a call with international people talking about the gazillion millions of jobs in cybersecurity. Whilst I'm getting quite a few calls, help me get a job. I have a master's, I have a degree, I have experience, can't get a job. So what is the problem we're really trying to solve here? I know you've talked about it's not a game changer, it's an opportunity changer.
Right. So just to frame this conversation and even take it out of your context to talk about what's going on with the big picture in cybersecurity, we've got a very interesting set of circumstances. So most of you probably have recognized that over the past, say, 5 years, it's very difficult for entry-level talent to find a job. So people coming out of school aren't able, and this is not just cybersecurity, but across the board. Specifically in cybersecurity, if you look at entry-level jobs, many of them require 2 years of experience. It's very rare that you find a true entry-level job. Over the past 3 or 4 years, there have been massive tech layoffs where very capable people in the middle of their careers, or maybe very senior in their careers, have been laid off. And then if you look at what's going on in the DC market over the past few months, massive layoffs across the board, not just in tech, but people with a very wide array of skills that are now available. So if you look at that from the candidate's point of view, it's very discouraging. And taking it back to your issues trying to find cyber talent that's qualified to do cybersecurity is very small. And then when you add those requirements, having a clearance, having the correct clearance, going on site every day. It really makes that a very, I used to always say, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're not solving the problem if we're just taking person from company A to company B. Hey!
Sorry about that.
So we've got all of these people with tremendous talent on the market, but maybe they're not cleared. They might be clearable. Hello. They may not have specific cybersecurity skills right now, but they have potential. And when we talk about cybersecurity positions, there's a wide array of positions that fall under the umbrella of cybersecurity. There's offensive cybersecurity, defensive, there's forensics, architecture and engineering, and then all of the support roles that go along with those, right? Technical writing, policy, things like that. So there seems to be, with this challenging market, a great opportunity. If you really think about it, we've got to fill those immediate billets. You've got to make your hiring managers happy. But at the same time, we've got to address that long-term problem that if we don't identify more people who can get into cybersecurity, clear more people who have the skills, and take skilled or take people who have clearances and upskill them, then we're going to be just having this perpetual problem of robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, the carousel.
Yeah.
Carousel that is job searching and stuff. So welcome, Felicity. I'll let her catch her breath by introducing herself. So Felicity is our other fellow just-in-time gilder. I'm glad you got here in one piece. Do you want to just say who you are, Felicity?
Sure. Thank you. Sorry about that. I literally left another intelligence-focused conference, so I'm late to class. It's so bad. So I manage our intelligence portfolio at Carahsoft, and I'm also an active cyber gilder. I've done a lot of work in helping young professionals find careers on the side, just as a connector, and used to do a lot of executive search functions. So somehow all those pieces mean that I'm up here. But
that's what happens when you're a gilder, you get stuck. Diane was just sharing that conversation we had as we prepared for today around the double whammy of it's a tough market, it's a tightening market, there's layoffs, cybersecurity is a key critical skill that's been in demand for a while, and now we have the whole security clearance laid on top of that. And when we were talking before, you had an interesting perspective around, is it a scarcity issue or is it a product market fit issue? Would you talk a little bit about that? Because that gives, I think, a really nice business perspective to the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And so it does seem to me, first of all, we may have a over-reliance. I know this is Clear Job Conference, so this is probably not the right thing, but an over-reliance on, if you look at the number of cybersecurity jobs out there, a very small portion is cleared, right? I do think what you said is really strong. Like, if you find people who are cleared, who are somewhat technical, upskill them, you get the certs in place, that's one way. But they also look at like the networks you have. So one of the kind of projects that I'm trying to do is put together a really comprehensive list of the undergraduate programs that provide clearances to folks in college while they're working on those. And if you think about like a Bush School at Texas A&M, right? 75% of those graduates, and that is a graduate school, but 75% go into public service. That's amazing, right? There's a lot of people who are Army Reserve or Reserve in general, right? And they have certain access. And weirdly enough, I was talking to a few of them at Billington Cyber last week. Their day job is not cyber, even though that's what they're doing, and they're cleared. So I think there's lots of pockets of communities that aren't being tapped. And I do think there's, as you say, the robbing Peter to pay Paul thing. That's, it's a small group of people that we're just poaching from one to the other. Let's open the Aperture. I was literally just with the CIO of DIA, and she was saying that they did an experiment with the neurodivergent cohort, and that the ability to do the job was obvious, right? What they didn't have set up in their infrastructure was the support system around it. Is HR ready to handle the challenges of a population that might need a different accommodation or manage in a different way? And so ultimately they scrapped that pilot program not because it wasn't a success from the technical perspective, because the HR piece hadn't caught up, which I thought was really interesting and rather unfortunate. Let's see. And then in terms of, I think there's a over-reliance on, or maybe what's the word, like, we think that we can just maybe snap people up straight from college. You know, maybe we need to be looking at, like, well, pushing people who maybe do an undergraduate in cyber, but, you know, have they got real life experience? They should maybe have a path, right? Especially in the OT side of things, right? So join a large OEM, join a systems integrator, get those years of experience, get the certs. So I think those are all, I think just kind of, expanding the aperture and trying to, I don't think there's any one, I mean, there's no one solve, right?
Just riffing off what Felicity was saying there, Diane, you were talking there, Felicity, about wanting to get people out of college or all those wonderful things. I have to say what I'm getting from employers is that people coming out of college aren't necessarily their sweet spot. They're looking for not just someone who can show they can learn and pass a test. Diane, you're at the sharp edge of this. What are the sorts of what's the ideal profile that employers are looking for, whether it's a unicorn or not? And what type of attributes play into that beyond the technical and certification route?
Sure. So I think, I'll talk a little bit about our workforce development program too, but I will say, so we take, we're partnered with a number of different universities, and I'll talk about our flagship program, which was at LSU. We're partnered with the state of Louisiana, actually the whole university system of the state of Louisiana, Splunk, and then I think AWS has some pieces of this as well. We're doing this with other universities as well, but we call what we have a student-powered SOC. TekStream is manning the SOC 24/7. We handle all of the escalations. We handle all of the deep incidents. But we have students being mentored and trained. They're actually handling level 1 incidents. And so they're getting real world experience in that SOC on the same tech stack that the whole state uses. So it's very, very usable, right? It's a great path to get them into the workforce. They also, when they leave, they have a printout of the number of incidents they've handled, the types of incidents they've handled, their audit scores. So they really have something tangible to take with them to the workforce. And I will tell you, to get back to your original question, when we're looking at these students for potential, we give them a critical thinking assessment, which is probably across the board. We talked about the many different cybersecurity positions that there are, but across the board, critical thinking is pretty important. I would say number 2 right behind that is high drive and willingness to learn. And basically that's because cybersecurity changes overnight, right? So you have to be someone who's curious, you have to be someone who's willing to keep up with the training, and that goes a long way. So we will take students who aren't in a technical major if they have those 2 things, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to double tap on that. I could not agree more. Passion. I mean, I'm in some Signal chats focused solely on the OT side of cyber, and we govies and private sector, and we're like, there's like dissertations people are writing at 2:00 in the morning just because they feel so passionately about this. So passion, I think systems thinking. I think you really need people who are systems thinkers, and I think the old school method of cyber is like, oh, I'm an IT guy, I move into cyber. But you need like the law, the governance, the business, right? Like it's a whole package around it. So yeah, I think both of those are really
yeah, absolutely. There's so many different avenues in cybersecurity, and so when we look at a profile for who's going to be successful in cybersecurity, it's not just one profile. There are so many different attributes that align with the different possible paths that you can take, and so we're really not looking at one profile.
Oh, actually, fun fact: the guy that started Cyber Command, he has hit the best folks for his tabletop exercises. Now he's at Naval Postgrad, are anthropology and history, in terms of the folks whose ability to kind of see the whole system and come up with really cool ideas. So yeah.
One of our best engineers at TekStream was a theology major. And then we have one that was a JCAT grad. And I will tell you, whenever I see JCAC on a resume, and I'm assuming you know what I'm talking about, you know that those people have a great foundation to be successful.
I'm going to ask the audience here, and then I'm going to come back to a question for you both to start thinking about in terms of, you've touched on this a little bit, but what types of solutions are you seeing? Because you both you come at this from a different lens. What are you seeing that's working? And what are you seeing that really people should have given up on a long time ago? It's like flogging a dead horse. But can I just ask the audience, a shout or a show of hands, what of this is resonating with you, and any comments you have in terms of how we are seeing the landscape? How are you seeing it, and how different is it from what we're spouting up here? Any comments to shout or show a hand if you agree, or what?
I agree.
You agree?
In cybersecurity, actually,
And it's interesting what you're saying about seeing the potential in people and building off of what you do see as that spark. Because a lot of times I'll interview folks and they won't know all the right answers, but if I can lead them down the trail just far enough to see what their potential is to learn and to adapt and to understand where it should be going, then I know there's somebody I want to hold on to.
And what's your name?
oh, Tanya,
Tanya. So for those that didn't hear at the back, Tanya was basically saying, part of your job, I'm hearing, is to see the potential in people. And this is the thing. I'm a recovering HR person, by the way. I'm quite unashamed about it, but I've been out of the game for a very long time, and recruiting even longer. But in the old days, in the olden days, when I was in personnel and social stuff, before we even heard of business partners, it was a challenge just to work with people to say, an interview isn't a test to try and get somebody to fail. The interview and the process is to try and help people shine, to show you how good they could be in your environment. And if the answer is no, then it should be obvious, but it's not setting people up to fail. So I love your point there about, you see your role as seeing the best and the potential, and you can either draw it out, and that may be a fit for your organization. It may not be. But I guarantee you the person will learn something through the process. That's really lovely. Thanks, Tanya. Anyone else want to say anything same or different to make sure we're on track for you? And if not, please do tell us. Thank you. What's your name? Shane. Oh, there's a man with a microphone. Thanks very much.
yeah.
Even better.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, like from a cybersecurity point of view, like as the technology landscape's changing, like last couple of years, AI coming in, and then like with quantum computing on the horizon, what challenges do you like anticipate or foresee, like as governments obtain these abilities, maybe against us or even our government for it, like to people to have those skills immediately when that's not really taught in like curriculum in colleges, or people don't have previous work experience with it, but they might need it immediately, like on the fly when it comes
Great
in.
question. What's your name?
Shane.
Shane. Thanks, Shane. One of you want to pick that? Diane, what about?
Go ahead. I didn't actually fully.
Well, really what I'm getting is, the change in technology is one thing, but AI is really leapfrogging. So we're seeing stuff now that frankly we weren't talking about a year ago. And someone I was talking to at RSA was saying, AI today is the stupidest it will ever be. So if you think AI is wow, then really we ain't seen nothing yet. So I'm absolutely convinced by people who know way better than me that it'll be a different conversation in a year's time. So I think your question plays to that, if I'm right. And how does that play into getting a job or the types of roles that are available to people? Am I correct?
Yeah, pretty much. I think it was also about like how to source people that have those skills, because like AI is a newer thing that like people wouldn't have 10 years of experience with it because it just came out. And I think like quantum computing is one that's on the horizon that like people aren't going to have experience or like degrees in. So I'm just wondering, like, as those technologies emerge more and more, what do you foresee like the strategy being for either uptraining those people like very quickly, or I guess how's that worked?
So I'm going to riff while I wait for somebody in the audience who knows actually more about this, because they're in that space. Feel free to put your hand up if you want to answer that question.
It's been.
Anybody in the audience got a role where you're actually talking about that and answering that? We'll come to Yolanda next then, please, if you pass the mic. But I'll tell you what I'm being told. I don't have experience in this, but I'm being told by some CISOs that they don't, it's that they think it's very easy to read a CV or a paper that's totally AI generated. But what they do expect to see is how someone has used AI or the technology to refine and enhance what they're doing, but not to give them original thought. And I know we have a book club in the Cyber Guild, and September Book Club was hosted by Rick Howard, who was a CSO of VeriSign, Palo Alto, CyberWire, etc. And Helen Patton came in from Ohio, who wrote the book on getting a career in cyber, basically. And they had a conversation about this that was along those lines. So what they're saying is that AI is something you can't ignore. So you want to look for people who understand its power and can answer a coherent question about how are they using it either in their everyday living, how they used it to source a job, how they used it to critique and refine their narrative about themselves, but not how they, it's not a creative process, it's not a creative thought. So they were very clear that they look for that. They see employers looking for that at every level. And if somebody isn't thinking about how AI can work for them, then they're going to be left out. They're expected to have an answer to that question. So AI is not dirty. It's not a bad thing to do. It's a bad thing to not know what to do with it in some form or another. And I'm giving you a very layperson's answer to that, Shane. But Yolanda, do you want to bounce off that?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm a very big component of technology and human interaction. And so there's a lot of places that are afraid of technology. And if you're in the market, you should take note of that. I think that the conversation needs to continue to be had in our market of, technology is coming, like you said, and how are we going to leverage it? How are we going to protect it? How are we going to use the lessons that we learned in the past and not forget them as we move forward in the future? And then how can we leverage the technology to be an opportunity? And so in a lot of talks that I give, AI is here. Let's work with it. How can it be an opportunity, and how do we protect against it as well? And then quantum is coming. And then there's technology past quantum that's being developed right now too. And technology is changing so much faster. We used to have Moore's law, like it used to double. We went beyond double now, right? And so we're going to get new technologies coming on faster than us being comfortable with the last one. And how do we operate in that space? And so that is all happening at the time. So the conversations need to continue to have. And if you're in the market or if you're new in the workforce, I would challenge yourself to just learn as much as you can, because you're going to set yourself apart from your competition that's just waiting to be told what to do.
Yeah, and I know Felicity is going to jump in and we'll move on, but I know certainly in the DoD space, the conversations that we're having there are very much how AI is not just about responding, but how they are beginning to think about and using AI as an offensive tool. So how we leverage it more is just part of the way we're going to operate. But Felicity, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so quantum is an area of particular interest for me. And I think it's an interesting conversation, right? Because industry is in one place and government's in another. And you got the government writ large, and then you got the pockets of the government doing the really cool, sexy stuff that we're not allowed to know about. So if I were recruiting, in general for something like that, I would think about walking the floor at every single possible conference, Black Hat, DEF CON, the hackathons. Quantum World Congress was yesterday. That to me, that's where like the passionate nerds are. They probably didn't go to school. They're probably coding for fun in their, in their garage, right? So things like that. I would also look at, there's a number of sort of in the weeds programs that you probably all know about, but I'm just, things like NSA has a direct from high school program. Palantir has this security clearance plus kind of tech program for high school kids. You have to be 18, so I guess it's not that high school, but still. There's also AI.futures. And so there's all these kinds of other pathways. So I would say, like, infiltrating the mini communities behind. So if you're thinking NSA, then looking at what's the charity or the community support behind the NSA. So it's the National Cryptologic Foundation, right? They do a lot of educational activities. In fact, there's an event on Monday that I would invite you all to go to for CNO developers. And so Mantech has that CERT program. They're graduating a bunch of folks, and it's a recruiting dream, right? So that's the point of it. On Tuesday, I'm holding an intelligence professionals event. Anyone who is in the intelligence world who wants to move into private sector can come, right? So I think there's these little pockets and networks. So, and then, like Purdue University has the Defense Civilian Training Corps. There's all these little hubs. So if, again, if I were trying to find these more difficult pockets of talent, I would look in, infiltrate those kind of sub-communities.
So there's a lot of things out there. In fact, there's a lot out there. Sometimes there's so much noise, we don't actually see the wood for the trees, frankly. And then there's the cyber clinics. I know Google put a huge investment into really quadrupling the number of clinics in the US, and there's something like over 70 now worldwide. So that gentleman, and then we'll go to Diane, the gentleman with the shirt.
Good afternoon. Just a real basic question. Do certifications count anymore in this world?
Well, there's certifications, and then there's certifications, and then there's really expensive certifications. So do they count, and are they worth it? I can add that on at the end, may I? Just to be provocative. Anybody want to talk about that one? Diane, what do you think?
Well, you can't get over the fact that they're required in your LCATs, right? But I would say they are definitely worth it. And I think depending on the track you're going, there are some certifications that may be more valuable than others. I think when you piggyback off of this, taking a non-traditional pathway, the certifications become very important. That may be where you actually get your foundational knowledge of what you're going to be doing, depending on the path that you take.
And that question came up at our book club last month with Rick and Helen. And the one person in the room was actually a student, had just got their first job, and there was a story to that. But after spending, I don't know, $20,000 or $30,000, they were back on the market. And when they started sharing they had a master's in cybersecurity. They'd done this 20 grand or something program. I just don't even understand how people survive these days with student loans, honest to God. And the answer was, do you really need CISSP, blah, 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 for what it is that you want to do? And what are the alternative options as to how to get there? And I think that's it goes back to Felicity's point about or somebody said about critical thinking. Maybe it was Diane, I don't know, but how critical thinking is important. Critical thinking should apply from the very minute someone thinks about what is it I want to do. Because so many people say to me, I want to be in cyber, will you help me? My first question to them is, well, what is it you want to do? Because cybersecurity is a very broad church. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people haven't actually thought about that, but they want me to take my time and my network to find them a job in cybersecurity. So first and foremost, apply some critical thinking. And I think you can help people mentor them by asking them the sort of provocative questions that teach them how to think about it. And my bias is that I think some people are reverting to certifications, a lot of money, because they're not critically applying what is it I really want to do and what is it I really need to get there. And it may or may not be a 20 grand course. There may actually be other things. So I think there is a value to certificates and courses. But I also think a benign, sheep off the cliff of it is not necessarily helping the cause.
So that makes me think of one of the things that we do with our in the RISE program, where we have proteges, and I'm a mentor. Are you a mentor?
This year.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell them what RISE is.
Yes.
Okay. So RISE. What is the acronym actually stand for?
RISE is Recruit, Inspire, Support, and Empower. So it's the Cyber Guild Inclusive Mentoring Program for rising women professionals who are in the formative years of their cybersecurity career. And our pilot this year had 12 proteges ranging from 30 years old to 58 years old, veterans, transitioning military, etc.
So one of the things that we do for our proteges, we provide an assessment that will help them determine what their innate abilities, which path they point toward. And I have seen people score like they could do any, so then they really have to go back to the drawing board. But it really does help someone, okay, I'm best in this, so I might pursue this path, and then I should pursue these. It actually does break it down to what certifications are more helpful. I think that's a very valuable tool, and it was validated and created by the DoD, right?
What's the name of that tool?
The CyberGen IQ.
Gen IQ. Yeah, and it was actually funded, I think it was a DEA, and it's become commercial, yeah. So I think whatever we can do to help people critically think about what is it exactly they want might help them at least choose the right course, honestly. But recognizing time, I just want to ask a quick question of both of you. Well, actually, I'll ask Diane, and then I'll have a more general question. What can a company do to differentiate themselves in the market, given everything we've talked about? What might be one or two things?
Wow. So I would say in a competitive market like this, you have to be treating your candidates with white gloves, right? If you're really worried about filling your more immediate positions, you have to bring that human element back to the recruiting. Not that you have lost it, but I mean, even to the point where instead of sending someone, you didn't get the job, you interviewed, blah, 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 call them, give them the feedback, keep in touch with your talent pipelines that you know have potential but didn't get the job this time. I would say networking, definitely when you're talking about opportunities, and this is going to be marketing driven as well, is to keep the eye on, keep the conversations about the mission as well, and get your candidates excited about what they're going to be doing. Not just the job, but what they're contributing to from an overall perspective.
I would say,
If you want to jump in on the community and relationship.
yeah, one thing to add to that is that I know a lot of the companies that work with Carahsoft. We have about 4,000 companies in our ecosystem. A lot of them are losing out when they have a return to office policy. So to the extent that you can have remote, especially for the younger generations, I think that's an obvious one. But if it's a magic wand, how do we help solve the problem? I think Debbie and I have bonded over community building, and I do a lot of ad hoc recruiting just because I'm super networked, and I'm constantly at events and putting things together, right? So just to the extent that it's a full-time job for everyone, just doing the right thing because it's the right thing, being part of Cyber Guild, coming to our October 9th event. Yeah, and being active in LinkedIn communities, again, like these weird signal chats, you never know where the next thing's coming on. But I think people, when they see you're connecting people for the right reasons, and another thing, I don't think there's anyone from the government here, right? But I have noticed there's a lot of govies leaving, obviously, and I think the funny part, I was talking to some of them just on my, before I got here, was that they're like, oh, I wish I'd talked to industry while I was still in government because now I need industry. So to the extent that we can sort of continue to build those bridges, because who knows, when they're going to want to come to the private sector. But I don't know if that really answers your question.
So I hope that we provoked some thought and helped dig into what you're doing really well, because you're doing lots of things really well, and maybe think about things we could all do even better. A total shameless plug, thecyberguild.org. Check us out. We're free to join. We do a lot of amazing events. Uniting Women in Cyber is the premier event for cybersecurity workforce in the Greater Washington area, October 9th at Amazon in Arlington. But check out our book clubs and other things. And I'll leave you with my recovering HR mindset, which is, I learned a very long time ago, after thousands and thousands of risks that I was personally part of and responsible for, I can never guarantee anyone employment. But what I would seek to do is a bit to what you were saying, Tanya. I can work for employability. So if I can offer employability and the support for that to people who either want to work with me or working with me, I think that's a more realistic, and I think that's an ask that we should be able to deliver. So thanks, Lindy, for having us, and thanks for listening. Cheerio.